session of September 1st, 2020 is called to order. Let's rise and do the pledge and have Joe Schmidt lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe.
I was waiting when you were going to call my number, Kevin.
I'll give you another one next week then.
All right. I'm due. It's okay.
Put down here, Joe ×2. There we go. All right.
Great.
All right. Let's move on to our study agenda. Then Troy Nichols of Phillips Burgess Government Relations is here to discuss our legislative priorities. Troy, you're up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the council and staff. It's good to be with you this afternoon. I don't know, Jeff, if I have to share or can share the PowerPoint that I provided.
Yeah, if you have the ability, go ahead. If not, we can get that done here. You have that that button.
Let me get it going.
Okay. All right, there we go.
Does that work?
That works.
So you can see the slide deck and not my Outlook email. Okay. Well, I think the idea tonight was for me to give kind of a bit of a contextual overview of where we are post-primary election and then where we are for the budget outlooks heading into the 2021 legislative session. And then we'll get into a little bit more detailed discussion about some potential projects that we can pursue funding for. And then, yeah, open it up for discussion. So if I have that right, Jeff, I'll jump right in. And then, but please, if there are any questions along the way, please interrupt me and ask away, because I hope this is more of a interactive session than just me talking for the next 10 to 15 minutes. So, in terms of the agenda for tonight, again, the general election outlook, and not to get political or root for one side or the other. I just, obviously what we do in the legislature come 2021 will be impacted by what happens in November. So I'll just briefly go over some of the results from the primary and what to expect in the general in terms of leadership and committee chairmanships. And then my plan was to talk a little bit about the operating budget, because that's the big kahuna that dominates the discussion once we come in January. And you all read the news, you know, with COVID-19 and some of the impacts, the revenue situation is a little bit bleak, but we'll go into some detail there. And then talk about sort of the capital budget and transportation budget dynamics, which is typically where we pursue our priorities and the work that I do on behalf of you to secure funding for projects in the city takes place. And then, you know, we can ask questions, answer questions after that, and then we'll get into the detailed discussion about some potential priorities that we want to pursue come 2021. Just to give you kind of a recap, and most of you know this already, obviously the Democrats do control both chambers of the legislature. The current makeup in the Senate is 28-21, and the House it's 57-41. And I think the ironic thing after the primary election last month, you know, you have 123 different races on the ballot just in the legislature alone. And I think that when it's all said and done, there are about 9 seats that have the potential to switch from one party to the other. I think that is a testament to maybe the urban-rural divide. And you know, even though we have a pretty fair redistricting process in the state, which we're going to go through next year, actually, or start, all the campaigning and all of the spending, it comes down to about 9 or 10 seats that are actually up for grabs following the primary election. Just alone with the results from the primary, if the primary was the general, you'd have a no net change in the Senate. in 2021 in terms of the partisan split. And in the House, you might actually have a couple of Republican pickups, but again, a decent majority for the Democrats there. So I don't expect too much to change come November 4th. In terms of the leadership, again, the majorities aren't going to change. So you're likely going to see Speaker Lori Jenkins come back for her second session as Speaker, and Senate Majority Leader Andy Billig, he'll be back as the Majority Leader of the Senate. And then for the committees that we pay attention to, primarily all three budget committees, operating, capital, and transportation. We expect all the chairs and the ranking members to come back, with the one exception, which is Richard DeVolt, who's retiring from the 20th Legislative District just south of here. He has been the Republican ranking member on capital budget for the last several sessions. And it's expected that Mike Steele from the 12th Legislative District, which is Lake Chelan, out in Eastern Washington, he will likely take Richard's place on the capital budget committee, which is good. Because I know he's a sharp guy, and he's buds with Drew McEwen. They both serve on the House Appropriations Committee together, so that will bode well for us in the future. Other than that, all the chairs and ranking committees in terms of appropriations, ways and means, transportation will largely remain unchanged. And then just finally, the same thing with the 35th legislative delegation. Obviously, Senator Shelton is midterm, so he's not on the ballot in November. And you saw Representatives Griffey and McEwen, after all the votes were tallied, with commanding double-digit leads. I think Representative Griffey was up by 16 points, and Drew McEwen was up by, I think, 13 at last count. So my expectation is they'll be back. The primary tends to be the biggest indicator of the general when all the votes are tallied. So no big shakeup, no big change, similar dynamics to what we faced, at least politically, in the past several sessions we've worked together. Now, just to kind of give you a snapshot here, most of you have seen the news in terms of the June revenue forecast. That was the first one post-COVID that everybody was waiting on. And we saw almost a $9 billion reduction in the projection revenue over the next 3 years. You know, a little over half of that would be impacted on this current biennium, and the other half in the next biennium, which would be 2021-23. Now, I think at the beginning, everybody thought that we would be in special session, not only to do some additional appropriations for the COVID response, but also just get a jump on the revenue reduction. And if you start to, if you make cuts earlier in the operating budget, you spread that pain over a longer period of time. And for the end of spring and early summer, I think the conventional wisdom was that we were going to be back in special session. However, as you know, that's changed, and I don't really expect for them to come back in special session at all. If they do, it will be after the election. A couple of reasons for that, at least what the leadership in the legislature has said. Obviously, we're waiting on the next round of the federal relief package from Congress, which is still in negotiations. And then there's also a little bit of an indication that there might be a bit of an economic rebound taking place. Obviously not coming back to the levels that we enjoyed pre-COVID. But if you look at state revenue collections, they were up about 600 million higher than expected in June and July. So, which is good news on multiple fronts. So we'll have a clearer picture come towards the end of September. The next revenue forecast is September 23rd, and we'll have a more clear picture of where the state stands in terms of its operating budget revenue. Just looking ahead to 2021, I would suggest that, it would be very difficult, especially for the majority party and for any party, quite frankly, to do a cuts-only budget, just because $9 billion is a lot to cut out of the last few months of the current biennium and the next biennium. And so, and then you have sort of this a good chunk of the operating budget is quote unquote constitutionally protected, meaning it's tough to cut K through 12, pensions, labor contracts, and debt service. That takes up 3/4 of the state budget right there, and it's hard to get beyond that. So that being said, the state does have a little bit more than $3 billion in reserves, so that will help obviously assuage the pain. But I would remind folks that it does take a supermajority to tap that reserve, and hopefully they can get an agreement early on that and take care of the priorities. There's also discussion of revenue, new revenue. It's hard to say what that would look like. Some of the bigger ticket items, like you've heard about a capital gains tax or an income tax, they can't be relied upon just simply because legal challenges will tie that up for a couple of years. And so if they're looking to balance the budget on those new revenue sources, they can't count on that because there'll obviously be a challenge to those. And then, you know, whether it's you fall back on the tried and true items, an increase in the sales tax or the B&O tax, SIM taxes, you know, the one thing that hasn't taken a revenue hit during this COVID is obviously alcohol and marijuana. So who knows, we might see some increases there, but I would expect some sort of revenue package, you know, to be debated in upcoming legislative session. Turning to the capital budget, you know, always when there's been an economic downturn, and I went through this and as a staffer in the legislature before, there's tremendous pressure for budget writers to sweep the capital budget in terms of, and to help balance the operating budget. And that typically, you as local elected officials know, the typical targets for that are the public works assistance account, some of the MODCA funds, some of the other ongoing revenue streams that should go to capital projects or environmental restoration or local government infrastructure. Those typically get swept in a downturn. But at the same time, the bond capacity, you don't typically see legislators bond for the operating budget. It's kind of like putting your light bill or your electricity bill on the credit card. It's very rare where you see them actually issue 25-year general obligation bonds for operating expenses. So I would expect that the bond capacity will remain and be similar to what we saw last biennium, which is about $3.2 billion. And as you know, that's where we receive typically our funding, that pot of money for our local and community projects. And just as a reminder, before we head into the larger discussion about what we want to go after, if you look at the previous biennium, they spent about $163 million for 298 projects across the state. And that average is about $500,000 each. But the range for those local and community projects is anywhere from $14,000 to $4.7 million. So even though, you know, the average is lower, there are some larger ticket items that make it into that part of the capital budget. And then moving to the transportation budget, obviously, you know, that every year it's about every biennium it's about $10 billion. But unfortunately, from a dollar standpoint, you know, we're still dealing with the effects of I-976, which was the $30 card tabs issue. And I know Joe knows probably more about this than I do, but looking over a 6-year period, they're projecting about a $1.9 billion reduction in the resources that are available to the transportation budget over the next 6 years. And the bulk of that comes out of the multimodal account, which funds a lot of our public transportation needs, rail, buses, things like that. However, as we've seen discussion in the past, a lot of times lawmakers, especially the two gentlemen who chair the transportation committees in the House and the Senate, tend to want to balance that hit to other, you know, local infrastructure projects, highway preservation, and shift some funds so all of the pain isn't felt in the multimodal account. We can debate the merits of that, but that tends to be the inclination of where the budget writers want to go. And then just from a COVID standpoint, there are some significant hits to the next biennium in the budget simply because ridership is down, whether it's the buses or rail. I represent a client in Olympia that has a direct interest in the Amtrak Cascades, and they've seen a 95% reduction in ridership on Amtrak Cascades since the pandemic hit. So that just gives you a little bit of context of what they're looking at. There is talk in both chambers and both leaderships of, again, putting forth a statewide transportation package. in previous years, it's been about a $17 billion proposal from the Senate. Senator Hobbs proposed that last year. And it's looking like the House is going to offer their own version. A lot of new fee increases, a lot of new taxes. The biggest difference between the two chambers obviously is that carbon fee. Senator Hobbs had a carbon tax in there to pay for fish culverts, which is, as you know, is a big ticket item. But at the end of the day, the dynamic has shifted with COVID because now they're going to be looking at a transportation to replace some of the revenues that have been lost. So the focus of the expenditures side is going to be a little bit different just because we're in a different dynamic than when these plans were first put together. So that is sort of in a nutshell an overview of what we're looking at in 2021. So I would be more than happy to pause here. I've been talking a lot and answer any questions anybody might have. Kevin, you're muted, Mr. Mayor.
There we go.
All right.
Any questions for Troy so far? Okay.
It was so clear and comprehensive. All of your questions were answered. And
well, I think you've done a wonderful job of giving us an idea of what we actually do know right now, with the reality being a lot has yet to come down the pike, and we're going to have to see the results from that as we move forward. But appreciate the background.
yes, all of this could change tomorrow, and it has changed quite a bit. As you can imagine, I've given this presentation to other folks over the last 2 months, and I have literally had to update this PowerPoint 2 or 3 different times every month because the circumstances just change on a dime, and I expect them to continue to do so.
Are you hearing anything specific to infrastructure projects? Oftentimes that's used as an economic booster to get people back to work. I've heard rumblings of Fed dollars for things like that, and obviously state funds as well, putting up for things like that. But are you hearing anything specific on that front? Things that we could be working on now? Well,
I think obviously they're kind of waiting to see what Congress comes up with. So that's the number one thing in terms of what legislators are looking at. And I think the thing that we have going for us as a city is the fact that you're exactly right, Joe. The capital budget and transportation budget tends to be viewed as jobs generators for the state, especially the capital budget, which is why I think that, I don't know what's going to happen on the transportation side, but at least on the capital budget side, there's going to be a huge incentive to protect that bond capacity, so that those dollars are spent on infrastructure projects that can keep people working and generate some additional revenue for the state. So nothing specific. The only specific thing that I've been hearing is obviously they want to funnel some money to school districts for broadband or rural communities for broadband expansion, because so many, as we were talking about before we officially started, 92% of students in Washington State are starting remote learning this month. And access is a big issue, especially in rural communities. And I know that the Department of Commerce has already let out some dollars for some pilot projects for expanding broadband access in underserved communities. So expect more of that.
And have you heard anything on the Housing Trust Fund?
I have not. They got a substantial amount of money in the previous biennium. One of the highest amounts, I want to say since 2009. And again, with that 3.2 billion in bond capacity, they're going to have to decide how much they want to dedicate to low-income housing versus, you're going to have school projects coming online. And I think the school construction count last session was over $1 billion, which was a little more than a third of the entire bond capacity. So you're going to have to balance those needs, right? But low-income housing has been a priority of this legislature and this governor, and I would suspect that it will remain so. I don't know that they'll get the 190 million that they got before, but I would expect it to be substantial.
I heard you mention MOTCA funds potentially being part of the sweep. I was curious because I believe do we have a grant on the books right now for C Street, the C Street landfill that is tied up with MOTCA funds, or not tied up, but would be receiving those MOTCA dollars. So I guess maybe solidifying our stake with that so it's reappropriated or whatever in the next fiscal might be something to consider.
We do have a substantial amount of money dedicated from MOTCA funds to clean up C Street, and we can make that a priority as well to protect that if at all possible. I know that's a big, important project for the community, and it's been a long time coming. So we can definitely add that to our list of priorities.
Yeah, with all of the fiscal impacts that we're seeing, both and from COVID, I-976, et cetera, I feel like more often than not that this coming budget building year is going to be defending the funds that we've already sort of got appropriated in defending sort of what we've got. So to keep those funds flowing so we can complete the projects. But on the other side, the other thought I had was funding for smaller dollar funding for design level work for potential other infrastructure type of projects, or even certain funds for social health services type things to better understand and plan for the housing issues and things like that.
Yeah, and I think we can, if you want to flip over, Troy, to the priority list that we have so far. Happy to answer any questions about these projects. These are all projects that most of you are familiar with, all of you are familiar with, I think. On the policy side, we had the diversity and inclusion initiatives. A lot of those are coming through the Association of Washington Cities, which after the Association of Washington Cities finalizes their legislative priorities, I'll share those with you. And then the state and local coordination for county jail space. We are not the only county by any means that are having issues with jail facilities, but yeah, I think it's a high priority for a lot of municipalities and most counties too, I would imagine. And then on the capital project side, we have the well one modernization. These are all projects that have been on our priority list before, and the reason why we didn't add a whole bunch of new things is for the very reason you stated, council member. A lot of this year is going to be playing defense, and a lot of the next several years, I think, is going to be playing defense. So if you have any questions about any of the items on the list there, we'd be happy to answer those. The one modification we had because of the way our latecomers agreement request with WSP turned out last year was a direct appropriation to satisfy that latecomers agreement. Not that, due to the state budget issues, not that we expect a whole lot of help on that front, but we do want to make sure that our legislators and our governor understand that that is a huge priority for us, particularly in the federally designated economic opportunity zone. So any questions about any of the items that you see listed here, or anything that you'd like to see added?
I'd just like to one last comment on our priorities. I'm happy with the infrastructure projects and the latecomers agreement, of course, very strong on that. I was extremely happy to see, though, some policy level type issues that we can lobby for, especially on the diversity inclusion front. I just recently read an article in the New York Times about redlining in Richmond, Virginia in the 1930s, and being able to lobby for whether it be funds or looking at policy in the legislature to sort of design or promote solutions that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's a great thing for the city of Shelton to lobby for, especially with the times that we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I just say on that, Jeff and I have talked over the last couple of years or last year. So typically I represent you in Olympia trying to secure funding for these capital or infrastructure projects. But if there are policy issues that arise during a session where we have a specific Shelton-based story to tell, I'm happy to go in the committee and give that testimony and talk to legislators on your behalf. So if there's a Shelton story, I can do that for you guys.
Great, thank you.
The only thing, Jeff, I would add just real quick, I did have a conversation briefly with Representative McEwen yesterday afternoon. We talked a little bit about capital budget. And again, to Joe's point earlier, some of those lower dollar projects in the 35th legislative district appeal to him and to Representative Grippy. These are the food banks and the shelters and those things. So especially given the challenges that we're facing, those are going to be appealing, but that doesn't mean that we can't ask for, and he won't ask for, and Representative Griffey won't ask for the bigger items like the well one modernization. I mean, we know that that is a critical infrastructure need that we have to get funded at some point. Same with the others. And then the other point, he sort of gave me his proxy, if you will, to work with committee staff to find a funding source in the transportation budget that would be appropriate to pay off that latecomer agreement. Again, it's a fairly big ticket item in a challenging time where transportation dollars are scarce, but we could at least work towards finding a funding source. And if we can't get it this go around, we could always come back in future sessions. But it's going to take a little bit of spade work in terms of the policy and the funding source, just because it's such a unique problem that doesn't exist, I don't think, anywhere else in the state of Washington, at least in terms of an agreement with the city and a state agency. So we're in uncharted territory. We
pride ourselves on being unique.
And I'm sorry, guys, I pulled out about every trick in the book to get that in the budget last time, and we got to the very last stage and couldn't quite get it done. We had a little policy disagreement with the governor's office, but we're on the radar now, and we're not going to give up for sure.
Kathy vowed to make cinnamon rolls this time.
Well, it's all the motive we need, right?
The push we need to get us over the line. Are there any other questions for Troy?
No.
I think as far as like the latecomer stuff, and if you're looking for stories from Shelton, I know it's a big ticket item, but it's also the story about our future. Yep. And I know that they've heard that from you, Troy. And I think maybe it's time for us to get some business owners up there with you to sit next to you and start talking about what it really means for the Western Gateway project and what it means for our downtown and whatnot too.
Yeah, I will be talking with Troy probably tomorrow about a way we can tie in that just occurred to me today, actually. So I'll be touching base with him tomorrow on another angle.
Well, that's good to hear. I think Jeff would agree with me. We were both up on the hill last session, and I think the one arrow in our quiver we were missing was that specific economic development piece where we could point and say, well, if this wasn't in place, we could have this, this, and this. So hopefully we'll be able to add that to our arsenal when we head up there in January for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Troy. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Do you need me to hang out, or do you want me to? I can go.
I think you're good, Troy.
Yeah, I think go enjoy the sunshine.
All right.
Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All right. That's a lot of information, huh? Okay. Next on the agenda is an update on our water meter project. Public Works Director Jay, is he here? There he is.
Right there.
Hi,
Got
guys.
details for us.
So good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and Councilors. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. I am going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my slideshow?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm giving a presentation tonight about our water system and metering. So it's called Advanced Metering Infrastructure. And basically what the project is to take the meters and to replace them and to put transmitters on them. Let me switch to the next slide. Give me just a moment. Hold on just a second, okay? Come on, slideshow. I'm going to start the slideshow again. Could just give me a moment, okay?
You got it.
My PowerPoint isn't being nice to me.
Try arrow keys if the mouse isn't working.
Yeah, I tried that. So do you see the slideshow again?
Yep.
Okay, there it is. Okay. So what we want to do is modernize our system to better manage our water resources. What we want to do is exchange out the smaller brass water meters with new census meters and put a transmitter on them. And so that transmitter operates at the 900 megahertz frequency. Census has licenses for this channel. And what we'll do is sort of convert over slowly is what the proposal is. So as we get new meters in, we'll be converting them over to this fixed-based system and be able to start a drive-by radio read system. So if you look at the bottom of the screen here, hopefully you can see my arrow, we'll start driving by and picking up meter reads. And the ones that don't come up, we continue to open the lid and manually read them. Eventually, when we get the majority of the meters done, the system has two different transmitters in it. We'll convert over to the AMI system, which is on a water reservoir. We'll put an antenna up there and it will pick up the readings from the residential or commercial meters and go directly to the finance department, and it will eliminate the man in the truck. In Newburgh, we were at the AMR system. We had about 6,500 meter assets, and it would take us about a day to a day and a half to drive by and get all the readings. And we were converting over to the antenna-based system as I left. Right now, we're real busy. And so if I go to the next slide, the existing system, we've got about 3,800 meters. The majority of them are smaller meters. The majority of them are in excess of 12 years of age. The AWA says that you should replace meters every 20 years. They tend to read low over time. The average is they read low. Typically, brass meters don't ever read high. They can be anywhere from 10 to 20% low, depending on the installation. And as they get older, it gets worse and worse and worse. So every month we open up every meter box. You can see that down below here, and pick up the lid, read the dial, enter it into this little data collector. And if you can see the reading here, the dial, it takes a little bit of training to read. This is a leak detection. This spins really fast, so you'll know if you have a leak, if that's turning and you have no faucets on in your house. And then you move your way to the arrow, and then you start reading numbers. Well, so then they punch it into the data collector. We download it into an aging Windows PC. Finance uploads it, and they say, hey, that meter reading that you got's way off. What's going on? So then the guy drives back out and says, oh, I typed it in wrong or whatever, or the meter isn't reading it all right. So it takes quite a bit of time. We got a couple people for about 3 weeks every month out reading meters and getting them over to the finance department. So a lot of our meters are out of the warranty period and they need to be replaced. The meter boxes fill up with rainwater and dirt, causing a lot of reading problems. Over time, the way we're currently doing it, as you add more meters, we are out quite a bit more time reading meters. I already talked about the inaccuracy of the meters. The state requires that the system loss to be less than 10%. So we know what we produce because we have meters at the well site that monitors how much water is leaving the wells. Then at the meter end, we read that. Then we do some adjustments for fires and filling from developer water. They get hydrant meters. So we do a bunch of adjustments, and we want to be under 10%. We were at 8% last year. Prior years were at 12%. So the state was sort of getting on us. The unaccounted for water last year, luckily it was under 10. With more accurate meters, we're going to be able to really get that number down quite a bit lower. So a large part of the water loss is actually just the inaccuracy of the meters and their reading. Right now, the customer has limited use information. We're only giving them a reading once a month. We have to train people constantly on the field workers and the customer service people that answer the phone. And then the most important thing is the field staff needs to know where all 3,864 meters are, right? So you can't find some of them, especially if you're the new guy, you sort of forgot. And you got to go back and someone else has to come out and help you and that sort of thing. And then some meters are in high traffic areas, fenced yards, dogs are a problem, right? That sort of thing. So the current meter reading process, we have the 3687 meters. We have 8 routes. We have so many of them, we do them in routes in 8 batches. We go to each meter, enter the reading in the handheld device, and then we download everything, and they process the data, and then they give us the odd data readings, and we go back and check again. And then we go back out and recheck, and then we get back to finance and hopefully get the billing correct. So with the AMI system, you ultimately would use the fixed base antenna. It will transmit readings right to the utility billing console at whatever interval you set in the system. That information is also available to the customer. So the system also recognizes zero water use when the meter is broken and isn't reading anything. Unusual high water consumption is read by the meter. It gets smarter and smarter. It knows what you used in the prior months, year to date, that sort of thing. It knows at 3 in the morning, you shouldn't be using water constantly. It means you have a leak. We get a hold of the customer. We'll be able to do that on a weekly basis rather than a monthly or even farther out basis. So we'll be able to give a lot better customer service. So the proposed system is on the smaller meters, we put in these iPearls, we put in the transmitter. You can see here the transmitter mounts to the lid. The meter goes in place of the brass meter. We put a fixed base antenna on a reservoir. Currently, we're having a propagation study done. We're hopeful we're only going to need 1 fixed base antenna, not 2. There'll be more to come on that. So the benefits of the AMI upgrade are enumerative. 24/7 access to your water use information. You can actually call up what your actual real-time reading is. Also takes a few minutes, but it will ping the meter and tell you what you're doing right then. So you can reduce your water bill. Well, your sewer bill is based on your water bill also, so you get a double benefit there. So the reduction of water loss, their pipe can break while they're gone too. We'll know that they have a breakage and be able to send someone out, knock on the door, do whatever. Stay in state regulations with the water loss. We'll have a 20-year warranty on the new meters, which is really good. These meters don't have any moving parts. They actually use a magnetic telemetry in there. At Newburgh, we had people that tried to fool the technology by putting magnets on their meter, thinking that they could mess it up. It has technology in there that knows when you're trying to introduce another magnetic field, and it will send us an alarm, so that sort of thing. that we can do account transfers and shutoffs. So when you move and we want to get a final reading, we just go to the console and get it, and give you an accurate reading right then. And then obviously set up a new account. We can install these things called census ally meters, where the console can actually shut off the meter right from the console if we choose. These are people with high activity where every couple months we're shutting off the meter or locking or doing that sort of thing. So we can put better technology in those, that people aren't walking around your property anymore, right? That is good for the property owner. We also have decreased transportation and employee costs. We have field injuries. We just had a person hurt his back by lifting a real heavy meter lid, which wasn't good. We also can get system pressure and temperature information. And it also will help us with mainline leaks. In addition to customer leaks, the system will help monitor for mainline leaks that we're not able to do right now. And eventually we'll gain a person back or two people, and we can be off being more proactive on other things in the system, out on the reservoirs and fire hydrant flushing and valve turning and all that. Anyways, and the meter reading is once per hour compared to once a month. And anyways, and then it downloads from the meter 6 times per day, which is pretty good stuff for everybody. So the costs, I have a pretty good breakdown here. I got a good handle on that. It's about $1.5 million to 1.7 million. So a couple different options, in the future. We can self-perform the project. That's on the right here, number 2. So a contractor will charge $350,000 to get it done in about 8 weeks. That gets us up to the 1.7. City staff, though, it'll take us about 4 years. We did that in Newburgh. And it was fine. We got out, got them all done. Have to allocate a bunch of people to it, about 1,000 installs a year, because we're busy doing a bunch of other things, right? That's how you get the cost down a little bit. So next steps, we're working on the propagation study to confirm the number of antennas. We have the 2021 budget priority funding discussions. There's other water projects, obviously, in the works. We have to do some revisions to the design and construction manual for the meter installs. And we need to just make sure we update the standard and we conform with that. That's new lids because of the puck, the antenna puck and the meter and the transmitter. And then we have to update the meter reading equipment with field tablets. And we have to integrate that with finance and get rid of that old PC and old data collector. We need to train staff that's field workers and customer service and finance on new procedures. And then we start beginning these replacements. We've already put one in. We're testing it out at the maintenance yard to see how well it works, accuracy of readings, how we like it, that sort of thing. And staff likes it so far. Census is they're a global company. So we're not the new kid on the block here with this. We're one of the latecomers. So this technology has been proven over and over. So we're not on the bleeding edge here. We're on the cutting edge, but we're a little late to the game here on that. So that's my presentation. I would be available for questions.
I have a question on third-party damage to the sensors themselves. How do most jurisdictions handle that? Like when you were in Newburgh, let's say, somebody parks their car on the lid of the thing, because believe it or not, we do have that problem, right, in the city with the lack of sidewalks and places like that. Is there any thought to maybe even relocating some meters and things like that are in trouble spots? You had mentioned, they're in fenced backyards and things like that. Or is there really no point with it now being all remote?
Well, with remote, you still can't be driving on the meter box ongoing, right? And so you'll see here, we have meter replacements. We also have the meter box and lid replacement right here. We're figuring we're going to have a bunch of lids and boxes. We're figuring in 700. So when we're out there, we're going to move them around a little bit. If they're in a bad spot, you're already standing there. It takes another half hour to hour to move it over a little bit. And surely we're going to do that work also.
Great.
Jay, I have a question. In terms of dollars, do we have any idea, well, how long that would take to either pay for itself? Or, you know what I'm getting at, in the long run, how many dollars we'll save, or is that kind of hard to predict?
That's hard to get. It's system dependent, Mayor, that our system is unique. We got a bunch of brass meters out there of varying quality and age. And to do that type of study takes months or about
Yeah.
6 months. What you do is you pull meters that are 1 to 5 years old, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 15 plus. You send them out, get them bench tested. Then you sit down and go to each one of those accounts and enter the accuracy readings and assume those, you'll average those readings out over all the meters of that age group. And you come back with a report. And so I was talking to specialists about that, and they said with our type of system and our age of meters, that is very likely there's some cost savings here. Their guesstimate is the payback period just by having better reading and better billing, minus the customers reducing their water usage. The revenue will still be up some on sewer and water. And they were thinking it was probably a 7 to 10 year payback period, just generally based on other systems of our size and our age.
And that
We decided not to move forward with that though. Just because it's expensive.
I just want to point out that doesn't include the savings in staff time for the people reading the meters.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Fuel for the trucks, you know, all those types of things. So that's
So
that's an addition to
it actually will speed up that payback period some.
absolutely.
Well, and outside of the labor reallocation, we've also talked about the customer experience, utilizing online billing, the ability for folks to opt in to things like Project Share, monitor their usage. But I would also anticipate we would see this shrink our timelines for the actual billing, because right now there's so many steps to even get it before we can send it out to bill. And if I recall correctly, and Jeff, if I'm wrong, by all means say so, but we did a test about a year or 18 months ago where we gave more of a cushion between the time that the bills hit the door and the time that we red tagged. And we saw a lot fewer people having their water shut off, which meant we had fewer staff members out doing that. We had fewer of our residents experiencing that problem. And so that in and of itself could save significant time and quite frankly could be a real benefit to our everyday residents.
Yeah, that would be, I think, not only the accurate reads, but the ability to get real-time reads and the billing process all included will add up to a much easier and more user-friendly customer experience, as well as the ability to monitor. Like Jay mentioned, if you see your water bill going crazy, we'll be able to notify you much quicker than a month or a 2-month lag. And that'll save our water use, and that'll save huge bills for our customers or write-offs for the city because there's a break or something else that's directly attributable to that excessive water use.
Jeff, I forgot the split you told me between sewer and water funds.
So we've been looking at ways to fund this so that we could provide options to council, and we think, although we have to investigate this a little bit more, I can't be 100% sure on this, but we think that we can do a 50-50 split of the costs between the water and the sewer fund. And we just have to, council has to decide if our reserves at the moment, which above the policy that the council adopted, if this is the best use of those funds, or if there's other projects that would be more beneficial to the city. And we're going to provide that analysis to you and give you our recommendation based on the data. But that's something that the council will need to take a look at, and we'll provide you with that information and have that discussion at a later time.
Okay. And Jay, why would we not do this all at once? Why would we do this over what you said, 4 years?
Yeah, correct. Just because of budgeting and reserves, that we would consider, parsing the budget out over a 4-year period. You save some on the install cost, but we divided out into 4 different budget years. We did that at the city of Newburgh because we didn't have, the 1.5 million or 1.8 million to go do the project immediately.
Okay, and I would imagine that all new meters would be supplied by a builder or whoever's for new projects.
That's correct. That will be changing over to the new meter standard, the iPearl, here in the coming months. And the transmitter will go into those boxes also. And we probably won't have the transmitters activated for a little while, but we're switching over everything slowly. If council wants to do that, I mean, we could still save, we have brass on the shelf right now, and we could stay with that. But it's my recommendation to move to the new meters, the new transmitters in this interim period until we get through the budgeting and all that. But in the meantime, we are putting in the newer system. When we're out there, we might as well put in these newer assets and then see where the budget process takes us.
Okay. And how much are they per meter? Is it in here?
Yes, it is.
Page
Yeah,
9.
I didn't put the actual number in there.
Oh,
So
okay.
the 3/4 inch iPearl meter was somewhere around $170. And the transmitters were down around 110, I think, right in that range. You can actually do the math. I can divide those out and get you exact numbers. I can send you a better breakdown if you want.
So not much more than the brass meters.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
I have just
Great.
a question, mostly technical and I think simple. We talked earlier on that the existing brass is about a 20-year lifespan, at least that's the industry standard. And this new one, we're looking at a 20-year warranty. So does that mean that we anticipate this has a longer lifespan for the asset, or are we just looking at, we actually have warranty for the entire 20 years in case something were to happen?
Yeah, well, the brass meters have a 10-year warranty. That Census is very confident in this iPearl product. They give a 20-year warranty. There's really no moving parts in there. It's electronics that are going to go bad in the meter. You could do battery replacements on them too if you have to, but they do estimate that the meter is going to make it through 20 plus years of battery. At that point, though, any asset starts to age, right? Since there's no moving parts, so I think we're quite a bit better off having those 20 years from now than we are with the brass meters.
Thank you. And I anticipate there's still some sort of mechanism for a homeowner shut-off valve. I didn't see that there was one pictured there, but I would assume there's some mechanism that if, God forbid, the pipe breaks and things are happening at the street, there's a homeowner shut-off option.
That's correct. There is a way for the homeowner to shut off right in the meter box. Our standard yoke isn't changing. So if you go open your meter box, you're going to see a city shut off and a customer shut off in there. Mm-hmm. Then by the plumbing code, you're also supposed to have another shut off right at your house also. So right. If you have a newer house, you should locate that. You usually have to dig it up and find it. That's the place where your kids can shut it off and that sort of thing. When you open that meter box and look at it, it's good to get a meter tool. It's a little wrench to turn that in the box. It isn't just a standard valve with a handle, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just appreciate that there's, options A, B, C in case of emergency. I'm the planner. And then as we talk about, if we do a phased approach at putting these in, what is the prioritization or the strategy for which areas would receive meters more at what time? I know we talked about the access challenge locations, but beyond that, what would be your recommendation or strategy for phasing in the meter replacement?
Yeah, obviously you jump all over the city as new development happens. You put in the newer meters, right? And then you go in though, and of the 8 routes, they're all, walking routes, if you know what I mean, which makes sense to go into one of the 8 routes and just finish that whole route. we've been doing them for years that way. Everybody knows this meter, that meter, this meter. And so with that institutional knowledge, I recommend we just start knocking them out in the 8 routes. Probably use, get maybe the hilly and the steeper routes done first, and then do the flatter, easier stuff last, I propose.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Council members, if there's any other questions, we'd be happy to answer those for you either in briefings or at another meeting like this. I think we have just a couple minutes before the regular council meeting starts, so get prepared for that and get ready to go on that agenda.
All right.
Thanks, Jay.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Jay. Very, very good. The study session is adjourned now at, what is it? 5:56. See you back in a few minutes. Okay, 6 o'clock. I think we'll get started now. Council meeting of September 1st, 2020 is called to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we'll have Council Member Joe Schmidt lead us again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Joe.
Slow down a little bit.
Hey,
You
Donna,
got it.
Yes,
will you do the roll call, please?
I will do roll call. Councilmember Feast,
Here.
Councilmember Inesco,
Here.
Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Mayor Dorsey,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson,
Here.
Councilmember McDowell,
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
All right, let's go on. Does council have any late changes to the agenda tonight?
I have one late change, Mr. Mayor. We do have, as we talked about in briefings, we're finally able to allow the public to attend our Zoom meetings, and Donna is working on that. But we did want to add a public comment period as item number C, or item letter C, excuse me, on your agenda for this evening, and all other items would be bumped down one letter. So your business agenda or presentation would be letter D, business agenda would be a letter E, and so on.
All right. Donna, should I read this part in the red?
Yes, please do.
All right, thank you. Members of the public can make public comments on both the business agenda and the action agenda. Option number 1, join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link that is displayed on the city's webpage. The link is listed on the agendas and minutes page under the tab that says more. Option number 2 is to email City Manager Jeff Knighton. And option number 3 is to call Jeff's office phone. Both the email addresses are displayed on the screen of the Mason Web TV streaming video. Okay. So now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
So
I
moved.
moved. Oh. Second.
Second, thank you, Eric.
Who did the first, who made the motion, Mayor?
Pardon
Joe.
me?
Joe made the
Oh, Joe.
motion and Eric second. Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we'll start with our public comment period. And I think we have Matthew Woodruff, is that correct?
That's correct. So Matthew, give me just one moment here to set the time. And then I will call on you. Okay, Matthew, you can unmute yourself and make your comment.
Yeah, hello, my name is Matthew Woodruff. I live in the city of Shelton over on Turner and 12th Street. And every day I have to go to work like most of us and do my job. And on the way there, I see a playground there. I think it's Neeland Park. And I noticed that the playground is closed every day, and which doesn't allow much opportunity for my kids to run around and swing on swings and go down slides. And I'm pretty concerned about that because I just don't see the numbers and COVID deaths or cases or anything for any kind of age group that would put my children in danger or my neighbors' children in danger. You know, I see more of a problem with my children not being able to release their energy and get outside and run and laugh and play. They're more cooped up inside our property, our house, as opposed to being able to get outside and be around other people. and that's pretty concerning to me. I've been able to call every council member's phone, and I've left messages with all about this, and been able to raise my concerns. And I've only been able to talk to 4 people out of the 7 that I called, and that's concerning to me as well. One even has a voicemail that's too full to even leave a voicemail with, and that's during a time where there hasn't been any public comment available at these meetings, and that's concerning to me. I was told by some of them that the council's worried about having to tell kids to get off the park and having to basically police kids. Well, I understand that that's not what you want to do. I don't see how the council or the city has any right to tell children what to do. They just have the right to tell the parents. This is the law, and it's the parents' responsibility. And if we're concerned about telling kids what to do, maybe we should be a little bit more concerned about the drugs and the illegal activity that happens in those parks, and not worrying about whether there's too many kids wanting to go down a slide. Just within the last recent memory, we had a stabbing over at Loop Field in a park. I think we should be more concerned about those things than we are about whether or not children can swing or if they might get too close to each other. If it's an issue of staffing, I don't see how that could be an issue. It's the parents' responsibilities to look after the children, not the cities. I would appreciate if you, the council, would look into opening up the playground so that my kids and my neighbors' children can all play and have fun. We can do so safely. We know how to wash our hands. We know how to socially distance. And at the end of the day, when you look at the numbers, children just are not affected. They're not at risk. This is not a problem for the vast majority of kids. And we should have the right to choose for us, for our own children, if it's an acceptable risk or not.
Excuse me, Matthew, that's 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that is all we have for public comment at this time. You're on mute, Mr. Mayor.
I'm muted. Kevin, you're still on mute.
Sorry about that, guys. Did you read my lips? Now we have a video presentation on the lean process. The lean process team consisted of staff members from Community Development, Public Works, and Central Mason Fire. Donna and Tim have the details. Is Tim with us?
He's with us.
Okay.
Here we go.
This is the development review team for the city of Shelton. They review all commercial permits and every permit in the city of Shelton. And back in February of 2020, the state auditor's office came and trained us on lean performances, which is a holistic approach to reducing the process and provide a value to our customers that are coming across our front desk. Behind us, that's the process for a commercial development application. This team nitpicked essentially each and every process of a commercial development permit, outlined it on the board behind us, and then established where processes could be eliminated, where they're duplicated, how we can make it more efficient for everybody involved. And there's proposals that came out of this that are making our processes better for the customer coming across the counter. Hi, I'm Jason. I'm part of the development review team. One of the things we found out during the process is something I think we all knew, but as we discussed it further, it became more important than a lot of the pieces you're going to hear about further, and that's the value of a pre-submission conference. And current for a commercial project, a pre-submission conference is not required. Well, what is that, you might ask? What's pre-submission conference? Well, It's a situation where somebody applies with fairly minimal plans. They'll typically have a site plan, maybe floor plans that show a general concept and a type of use. They can then sit down with city staff, all the people that are going to be reviewing a permit, and get input at an early stage before they've invested in engineering, traffic studies, stormwater, utility plans, those sorts of things. And what we have found over the years, and I've been doing this for 15 years for the city of Shelton, what we have found are projects that go through the pre-submission conference come in at a much higher quality and are much closer to something we can approve at a first review. Not always, but sometimes they are. And it saves not only us time, but it saves the applicant time. And when you're talking development, not only from a city standpoint, but from a developer standpoint, time is money. So one of the changes we're recommending, from our standpoint, time is money. So one of the changes we're recommending is that pre-submission conferences be required for a commercial building permit application of a certain scale.
Hi, my name is Nicole, and we made a permit process checklist so we can bring in more accurate and more complete submittals. So we made a checklist to make sure applications are more complete. Anybody can be at the front counter and do the checklist with the customer so we can have our permits go out quicker in the future.
I'm Keith Ritz, I'm the Deputy Fire Marshal. Something we did for the fire protection applications is go through them, update them with the new list of what we need, as well as combining them all into one list in the application to make it easier for the applicant so they don't have to figure out which applications they need to fill out.
Evening, Council. My name is Ken Gill. I'm the city engineer. There's three big things that we did with this main process that helps out our commercial building permit process. One was one single person that it all goes to. Everything that comes in goes through one person, and then that one person can filter it back out again to the correct people to get it reviewed. Second thing was all electronic submittals. So instead of having the paper on the wall come in, you've got PDFs coming in that anybody can look at on the computer, and then redlining it, markups go out with electronic submittals also. So the third big thing is updating our traffic impact fees. We're in the process of doing that. So instead of having uses that you don't use anymore or that people aren't building, you've got new uses so that you can give them the right and accurate fee.
Hi, I'm Sean Carlstrom. I'm the building official. And in the lean process, we found that it would better serve the customer to provide counter time between 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning on Mondays and Wednesdays for anybody that wants to come in and look at their plans.
So, council members, we produced that video for you. We wanted to get those folks in front of you for quite a while. The process was completed in February. Everybody that participated worked really hard on it. And because of COVID and because we can't meet in person, we weren't able to do that. But we got a video with outstanding production value, as I'm sure you all noticed, to present to you what those updates are. And what they are all focused on is to make our building permit process and our commercial building permit process easier for applicants to come in and to talk with us and to get those approvals quicker so that we can get them to work. We focused on commercial building permit process because that's one of the more complex ones, and because a lot of the lessons learned from that lean process can filter down to other types of projects. It won't just apply to commercial permits. We won't have to go through another lean process for residential, for instance. A lot of the lessons learned apply to other projects, which is why we picked that one. Very, very proud of all the work that everybody did to pull that together. And as you can see by all those sticky notes and a week's worth of discussion and all the notes on the wall, they put a lot of effort into it, and they should be applauded for that.
Thank you, people. Moving on. The only item on the business agenda tonight is a resolution for the FCS group rate study, amendment number 3. Public Works Administrative Manager Brooke Kills will give us more information.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. All right, so this is the third contract amendment with the rate studies for the FCS group. The work has been completed so far for the second amendment that took place, and they've been working hard to do that. During that time, we have found that an audit is needed for our current stormwater accounts. We need to have them measure the impervious surface area, match it up to the stormwater accounts in our billing system, and identify any holes that we have. If there's any developed properties that aren't linked to a current account system, we need to find that out. And all of this stuff will help us build a foundation and a database for the monitoring activities and the inventory and inspection programs that are required for our new NPDES permit, the phase 2 permit. And all of this also is going to be covered by the grant that we received and the council accepted, I believe, was last October. Let's see here. So the new contract amendment is going to be for a total of, pardon me, I left my paper. We're adding $44,860 to this contract amendment for them to complete that whole audit. And so the new total contract amount is $79,920. Are there any questions?
Right. Any questions for Ms. Kiltz?
Third time's a charm.
What's that?
I said third time's a charm.
Well, they've completed all the activities that we have asked them to so far, but this task that we've asked them to complete as far as the audit is something that we attempted to do in-house, but because there are so many accounts and there's not enough staff members to complete it, it would take months for us to complete it ourselves. And because this is something that is covered under the grant that we received back in October for the $95,000, that's something we felt it was a good use of those funds to assist us with this, especially since it is something that's going to benefit us during this phase 2 permit, all the stuff that we have to implement with that.
Thanks.
All right, any more questions? Well, we can pause for public comment. Okay. All right, that's 30 seconds. So staff is recommending that we concur to move this item to the action agenda for September 15th. Any objections? All right, let's move on. Move on to the action agenda now. The first item on the action agenda is the updating of 2 city policies. Administrative Services Director Michelle Sutherland is here to share with us. Is she?
She was not able to make it this evening, Mr. Mayor. She had an appointment that she couldn't miss, so I'll go ahead and take over for her.
Right.
We have 2 new policies for the city that are in direct response to COVID-19. The first of those is limited duration, and it relates to the FFCRA, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, which will be administered through the end of the year. That policy, and I can pull it up and just kind of read a little bit about that. Have it here. Is for 2 categories of leave. The first expands the existing FMLA coverage, and the second is for response to childcare. And this policy would be in effect through December 31st of this year. The second policy that we have relates to telecommuting, and The telecommunication policy is changing. This would be a permanent change, but it's basically with your department director or your direct supervisor's approval. You could work from home on a city-based laptop, which as the organization is moving toward the cloud, that's would make it more viable. It's an employee attraction tool going forward. And it also would allow people to have work-life balance as they're performing the work in the city. Be happy to answer any questions about either of these policies. And we can move forward from there. This is just one part of the policy update. The more comprehensive policy update you'll be seeing later this year, but we wanted to get these implemented because they're in response to COVID and the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act.
Jeff, I did just notice one small grammatical piece, which is on page 26 of the packet.
Yep.
I think that can probably be resolved with a Scrivener's correction, but the bullets 3, 4, and 5 don't relate to the STEM sentence. It's just a consistency thing. I have no issue with the content itself, but just want to make sure that as we're getting that recorded, it's done appropriately.
Is that the so I was looking for that.
So it's under eligibility. It says employees are eligible if they have job duties, if they can't be available, if there is minimal, if the employee's job.
Okay, so the change would not affect the overall concept of the policy. So we can make that grammatical change. That's we'll get that fixed.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, on the daycare side of it, if schools are closed, well, schools are closed.
Mm-hmm.
So are we going to allow this until school reopens?
We have. We started allowing easy for me to say, telecommuting right when COVID-19 started to really affect the state in mid-March of this year. We brought everybody back, but then about 2 weeks ago, we offered the ability for people to work from home if they so chose. And with the department director's approval, very much in line with the policy that you see before you tonight. So that can happen today. But with the comprehensive policy update, making this permanent, should, fingers crossed, this never happens again, should anything like this ever happen again, this is not something that we would have to focus and spend time on since we'd already considered implementation of this policy now.
I was referring to the leave of it. So could somebody actually take leave today until
I'm sorry,
COVID is over and partially be paid for that? And
they could under FMLA, and that's the expanded FMLA protections that were included in the FFRCA.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll pause now for public comment.
Okay. That's 30 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
All right, so we have a motion. No, do we have a motion?
I move to approve this city policy number 200-1860 in support of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and city policy number 200-1870 in support of telecommuting as an alternative work arrangement.
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All right. We have a motion and a second to approve city policy number 200-1860 in support of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act and city policy number 200-1870 in support of telecommuting as an alternative work arrangement. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right. Motion passes. Okay. The next item is a resolution number 1168-0820 for 2020 residential paving. And city engineer Ken Gill will fill in the details for us. Wait a minute. There he is. All right.
Good evening, council, and thank you for letting me present to you guys tonight. I'm going to share my screen with you real quick. So what you should see in front of you is a map of the city, and it shows, you'll see some blue and black dashes on there. That is where we're putting down 2.5 inches of asphalt in East Mountain View. And you also show some squiggly lines on there. Looks like what was on Charlie Brown's t-shirt. And that's where we're raising some iron up. So from last year. So in a perfect world, we would have that all raised up, but we were pretty short staffed last year and are having our contractor take care of it this year. So Jay, I'm sure, did an excellent job presenting this last week, and I'm just going to ride on his coattails and finish it up there, and I'll let you guys open it up to any questions that you have.
Anybody have any questions? In that case, we'll pause 30 seconds for public comment.
That's 30 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
At this point, we're going to ask for a reading of resolution number 1168-0820.
Resolution number 1168-0820, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to approve a public works contract with Agate Asphalt and Excavation for the completion of the 2020 residential paving project.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1168-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the contract with Agate Asphalt and Excavation for the 2020 residential paving project.
And I'll second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1168-0820, a resolution authorizing city manager to sign the contract with Agate Asphalt and Excavation for the 2020 residential paving project. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on. We have another resolution for 2020 chip seal. You're up again.
Good evening again. So another asphalt project presented to you tonight. It's like double duty tonight. So again, I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to flip to a different map. So same map, just different kind of asphalt. This is chip seal. So the line in blue, they're starting right in front of the hospital. We'll pick up where we left off last year.
We don't see the map, Ken.
We're not yeah.
Okay, see the map. Okay. Let me share my screen. Okay, how about that?
There we go.
Okay, so same map, but different project. So if you focus in on where the hospital is, everybody knows where it's at on 13th. And if you drove through there today, it gets really rough and really smooth. And the reason is because that's where we left off last year. So we're going to pick that up with that blocky blue line and end all the way at Wallace Nealon and Brockdale. So fingers crossed for nice warm weather because you need some nice hot weather to put down that chip seal, usually 80 plus. So it's a little bit more temperature sensitive than 2.5 inches of asphalt. So again, I'm sure Jay did a great job presenting this last week, and I don't have any more thing to present to you, but I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
And when are they supposed to start, Ken?
Agate construction, Agate asphalt is going to start next, I'm looking at my calendar, the Tuesday after Labor Day, and they've got a 2 or 3 day job. So you might get a call from some of your constituents. Cobra gets all the good credit and kudos for putting together a flyer today that'll go out into residents. But you also see our variable message boards out in that neighborhood. And then Doolittle, I've reached out to them tonight, but haven't been able to make contact with them. So when I get to talk to their general manager, I can get back to you through Jeff on a start date and schedule.
And I'm assuming you're coordinating really well with the hospital to make sure that there's great access and whatnot, because that's going to be a concern for our constituents to hear that plan.
Correct. So I've made friends with Brent Wilcox. He manages the construction activities going around at the hospital. Councilmember Fife, we'll reach out to them so that we're out there at the least inconvenient time for their operations.
And with the construction and just the projects that are going on there, there's not going to be any issues of us having to, take the chip seal back out because of their projects, is there?
So let me rephrase your question, make sure I understand it. So
okay, thank you.
Because of the construction that's going on at the hospital,
right?
And our project, will there be any conflict? And I don't think so. They just paved their lower lot that's right off of 13th. I mean, it looks like, I ran by it today, it looks like $1 million. So
I was there yesterday, so it definitely is. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So to my knowledge, they don't have anything planned. And I think they've buttoned up their site for the year. But I will definitely reach out and make sure that you don't get any complaints or calls from people that want to use the hospital and we're in the way with our dirty trucks that are spewing out gravel and tar.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. We'll pause 30 seconds for public comment.
That's 30 seconds, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Donna. Would you give us a reading of resolution number 1167-0820?
I will. Resolution number 1167-0820, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, excuse me, authorizing the city manager to approve a public works contract with Doolittle Construction for the completion of the 2020 chip seal project, Schedule A.
All right, do we have a motion?
To adopt resolution number 1167-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the contract with Doolittle Construction for the 2020 chip seal project.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, do you get a second?
Second.
Okay, here we go. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1167-0820. Resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the contract with Doolittle Construction for the 2020 chip seal project. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, let's move on. The last action item is a resolution for the purchase and sale agreement for Simpson Properties. City Manager Jeff Knighton has the details for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Tonight, we are having the second reading for the purchase and sale agreement for properties owned by Simpson Lumber. They are, the vast majority of those properties run from immediately north of Meelan Park out to the intersection with 101 and Railroad. And there are several other properties along the just north of State Route 3, up on the hillside where the cleanup was conducted several weeks ago, and looks fantastic. There was 4 tons of garbage hauled out of there. So I'm very happy to be able to do that or to facilitate that for the community. There are no changes from what you heard at our last meeting, with the exception of a provision that allows a transfer of water rights, any water rights that are associated with the property, along with this property transfer. And our liability, fiscal liability, is approximately $1,200 to pay for the real estate excise tax. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Just a comment. This is a great opportunity for us to have walking trails for people that come out of Meelan Park, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, this was part of a robust public involvement process several years ago. A lot of people put a lot of time and effort into that project. And we want to make sure that we honor the work that they did. There will be further public involvement processes, both with the council and a standalone, as soon as we can figure out how to do that when none of us can get together.
Thank you.
All right, let's pause one more time for public comments.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, that's 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Donna, would you give us a reading of resolution number 1166-0820?
Resolution number 1166-0820. A resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, ratifying the purchase and sale agreement with Simpson Lumber Company, LLC, for conveyance of railroad, timber, and lumber properties.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I move that the city council authorize the mayor to sign on behalf of this Shelton City Council resolution number 1166-0820 and the real estate purchase and sale agreement with Simpson Lumber Company, LLC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize me to sign on behalf of the Shelton City Council.
It wasn't charged.
Somebody say something? I'm sorry.
I heard something.
Resolution number 1166-0820 and the real estate purchase and sale agreement with Simpson Lumber Company, LLC. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, let's move on to the city manager report by Mr. Jeff Knighton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I had planned to address this anyway, but we heard from a citizen tonight regarding the playground closures. Couple of things I want to stress, that the parks themselves are still open. So there is an opportunity for children and all the citizens of the city to exercise, get out in the sunshine and enjoy the sunshine. I know there are other jurisdictions that have left their playgrounds open, but we don't know necessarily what their circumstances are. We want to, every action we're taking, from closing the playgrounds to the softball fields to other actions we're taking in response to COVID, is to do everything we can to make sure that the city businesses, city governmental institutions, city parks, schools in particular, can reopen as soon as possible. And some data, some good news that I heard last week is that 3 weeks ago, we were at a transmission rate. And when I say we, I mean the state of Washington. We were at a transmission rate of 1.12. And I know all of us that have been paying attention to the news know that the rate that we need to be at or below is 1. And I can say that the information I got late last week was that because of our efforts and other communities around the state, our transmission level had dropped to 0.97. So we are going in the right direction, and that's good news. And that, again, just to stress, every action that we've taken is to ensure that things like schools and businesses and city halls, so that we can conduct business in person again, are to make sure that happens as soon as possible. That's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that topic or any other that you have tonight.
Anything from anybody?
I just have a comment, not relating to that, but are you ready for me then? Sorry. I just wanted to congratulate the Ridge Motorsports Park. They successfully completed, albeit not what was intended originally, the first inaugural Moto America here in sunny Shelton, Washington. From what I heard, it was quite the awesome event. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything, the spectator portion of it was considerably cut back, of course, but man, what an awesome thing that occurred in just right across the highway there. And looking forward to many more years of professional sporting events like that, bringing economic drivers to the city of Shelton and to Mason County. And specifically just want to congratulate Tracy Schmidt and her team at the Ridge, and I hope more wonderful things to come in the future with that partnership between the city and the Ridge. And yeah, it was just quite an awesome thing to have some national attention brought to Shelton, Washington. I did catch a couple clips on TV when they're panning and around the Olympics and the track in the background, and it was quite cool to see our little town hit the map for something pretty big and pretty positive. So just wanted to share that tonight.
Very much so. I was jealous of the people that were able to attend and see it up close. And I did get a chance to watch it on TV, and it was fantastic. It looked great, and I can't wait for all of us to be able to go in person next year to enjoy that. Those are very exciting events, and we thank the Ridge for putting that on, and hopefully support them any way we can.
All right.
Can I also say thanks?
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Also love to see our new oyster. Tell me his name. I can't remember it right now. My brain's a little foggy. So we have a new representative up on the hill in my neighborhood. We have our oyster harvester that is celebrating Oyster Fest, and it's so heartwarming for me to see that every day. And so thanks for Rachel Hansen's continued work, and just all of us coming together as city and chamber and EDC and all of our businesses that continue to support our efforts. And again, even though we're in COVID times, we're strong and prideful folks, and we're going to come through this, and it takes all of us to come together again and support each other. And I'm excited, even though these are hard times, I'm excited to see, you know, where this trail is going to take us, really. I mean, I'm not trying to just be philosophical there, but it's literal too. You know, this is something that I think we've all wanted to see for our community. And, you know, I'm excited for our downtown as well. So thanks everybody for your hard work, and for the citizens that are on, and our staff and stuff. Thanks again to all of you too. Appreciate all of you.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 6:46.